that kind of unity between established white business and organized voices of black business is an existential impossibility. Let me give you an example of why I say this. You would hear Khiri Fourie, for instance, at Capitec saying, this BEE thing hasn't worked. I'm not sure, I guess, at whose feet that concern is placed. But you're hearing it across different tiers of white established business that begin to see transformation of their boardrooms, of their value chains, as something that is an onerous requirement that distracts them from the day-to-day operations of business. Whereas the BBC, on the other hand, would say, well, existentially, this is something that we are also organized around. It's probably one of the reasons that drive our existence, this idea that, business by and large in South Africa continues to be male and white. Is there any common ground if you can't agree on that fundamental basis, which is the issue of transforming our society and our economy?
Well, we have requested a meeting with the CEO of Capitec. It was his sentiments when he was made business leader of the year. Require some kind of face-to-face engagement. They were worrisome to us. Our view as a Black Business Council is that the economy of South Africa is not transformed fast enough. Just look for yourself at the leadership of top 40 listed companies, in terms of their CEOs, in terms of their CFOs, even the chairpersons. If you were outside, you'll come back and say, well, why are these people resisting change? Why are these people so begrudging of transformation? And that's a fact. Corporate South Africa does not want to change. They believe that offering Black people jobs and paying taxes and giving them bursaries and contributing towards social housing is a sum total of what their obligations are. The fact is that they're in for a huge surprise. So for us in Black business who are saying transform, change, we're doing that because we have love for the future of this country. The fact is that if you were to wake up in 50 years' time, you'll find that South Africa is predominantly 98% Black nation. You'll find that the CEOs will be Black, the chairpersons will be Black. It's going to be a transformed society through natural demographic change. We believe that's too slow. We believe that it will serve South Africa's interests better if we hasten change. And that change has got to be hastened by top leadership of South Africa, including the business persons of the year, really embracing this philosophy and leading it rather than challenging it.
Let's talk briefly, just as we get to the tail end of our conversation, at some of the corporate level decisions that are made. I often make this example that many in the left of our society often argue that South African business and South African corporations are on an investment strike. If you look at the sort of cash balances that sit on their balance sheets, in relation, of course, to how much they're investing in the real economy in South Africa. Many are buying back shares, many are paying aggressive dividends, rather than maybe investing some of that money in new capacity. Well, what is the view of the BBC around the investment profile of the country? We've certainly heard you on issues of BEE, issues of employment equity, but what do you think are the biggest constraints to ensuring the much-needed investment in the real economy? I'm not talking about bonds and equities, but I'm talking about the kind of investment that turns soil, gets people into work, and is able to add productive value in our economy.
Well, there is no leader of companies who is going to invest money for the long term in an uncertain environment. So policy uncertainty is one of the major impediments towards long-term investment by corporate South Africa in the economy.
Which policy areas?
And that's the responsibility of government. And that's the responsibility of lawmakers. They flip-flop on the areas where, for example, they should be more decisive. Take, for example, the issue of unabridged birth certificates. as an impediment towards attracting inbound tourism. It's been a topical issue in the tourism industry for the last, 3-4 years? It's only been resolved recently by a stroke of a pen. But the communication thereof, that, by the way, the shackles, the chains are unshackled, is too slow. Sure. But it's a step in the right direction. Now, one may argue that that has hampered the investment by large groups in tourism infrastructure, whether it's lodges, investment in buses, or such related. That's a microcosm of what happens in the economy. If you were to go into the telecom space, they will talk about the same thing, that the spectrum, set-top boxes in broadcasting. If you were to talk about mining, they'll talk about uncertainty around once empowered, always empowered. Whether you need a mining to be empowered when you are doing just mere exploration, still establishing whether there's something to be excited about here. Those kind of things, we believe that we are shooting ourselves in our feet and therefore slowing down the rate at which corporate South Africa could be investing in the economy, the rate at which we could be attracting foreign direct investment. So you could say the same with education, you could say the same with food sector, agro-processing, agriculture primary. This political uncertainty as an environment replicates itself throughout. So let's get our act together. Then we'll stop talking about this investment strike. Because this investment strike is an outcome of lack of confidence in the economy, if it exists in any case.
Let's talk about the SOEs. And I want us, as we wrap up, to speak about them on two fronts. One is some of the challenges around governance. And a lot of people have made quite a bit of noise in the last few months or so about what they see as a concerted attack on black professionals in many of our SOEs. And in the latest case in Mango, the appointment of a white gentleman with a matric. And many people have made the case that, there's all manner of black professionals that could have filled that role. But then the other one is really the compliance of SOEs themselves when it comes to transformation, when it comes to employment equity, which according to the BEE Commission has been, I guess, nothing short of leaving a lot to be desired.
My point of departure on SOEs is as follows. We are all South Africans. Whether you are white, or you are woman, or you are male, or Indian, or colored, or African, or Chinese, South African, you must really have a sense that you can play a role in taking the SOEs forward. That if you want to work, that you have a reasonable chance that you'll be welcomed to play a role there. However, there are issues of processes. When you see an advertisement for a CEO of Mango being tweaked and changed to suit a particular person, you beg to ask a question. Is it fair? Or, South Africans are being played for fools here? I suspect it's the latter. Take race aside. There's a lot of unemployment in this country. There are lots of people who want to take the next step in the ladder, who, when they see an advert, they really go out to put the best foot forward in terms of responding to the ad. When it turns out that they're being made fools because this spec is designed for a particular person, it's not fair at that level. Just at that human level, it's not fair. When you look at the demographic of the top leadership of SOEs, you look at forget about chairpersons. Let's now look at the CEOs, CFOs, management team, leaders of business units. And you can see that systematically, by default or by design. Black people are becoming few and far between. You begin to worry whether the contribution that Black people can make in those SOEs is being appreciated or otherwise. It's a matter of deep concern for Black business. I don't want to racialize it any more than that, other than to say we are begging very capable Black people to not lose hope in the need to play a role in taking the SOEs forward. But what is happening is that they're being kicked in their teeth. They're not being appreciated. Something ought to be done about that. It's not sustainable, it's not tenable either.
Many young professionals that work in corporations often speak about experiences of alienation that they feel. And one would argue that many of those people are your motive forces, if I can put it like that. Those should be your captive members and the audience for the message of your organization. When you think about those young people who were sitting either as a plant engineer, as you were a few decades ago, or sitting at the early stages of their own careers and trying to chart a path, as you say, but get their teeth kicked in, what would you say in relation to that would be the 2 or 3 key tasks of the Black Business Council in responding to the plight?
Number one, there's still a role for organized formations. The likes of BMF need to be strengthened. The likes of APSIP, ABASA, and other organizations like OCA for women chartered accountants, they need to be strengthened, supported, because it is through the collective strength of individuals acting in a single-minded and purpose-driven manner that the plight of individuals and the collective can be improved on. So organize yourselves. Number 2, don't take shortcuts. Don't take shortcuts. The morass that we find ourselves in as a society, discussing state capture and the sorry state of SOEs, wasn't it because things just happened? Individuals were at the center of terrible deeds. And if you're a professional and you veil yourself, act with integrity and don't be trapped by quick gains at the expense of SOEs or corporates. So act with integrity, respect yourselves. And those who are persuading you to do wrong things, report them and stay away from that. Because I've seen a lot of young people with very bright future otherwise getting themselves destroyed simply because they could not stand up to the bullies who wanted them to do wrong things. So a professional must act with integrity for his or her own good, but for the good of the country. It's very important. Number 3, South Africa is a country of less than 60 million people, and Africa is a country north of 1 billion people, and the world is more than 7 billion citizens. Don't see yourselves as just playing in the small platform. See yourselves as part of the global arena, and therefore be competitive, because you are not competing with yourself and people in your immediate neighborhood. You are competing with your peers elsewhere in Indonesia, in Estonia, and prepare yourselves to be a global player and see yourselves being there in the long term. And so it's very important to always upgrade your knowledge so that you remain relevant. And if you want to be entrepreneurial, know that that's not an easy road, but it's a worthy road to take. And go for it if you've got the energy. We don't want people who are not fit for purpose for the long haul, because South Africa has got a right place in the League of Nations. And it will rely on those young people, black and white, to help us to punch at the weight.
Sandile Zungu, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.